Hey friends, hello, happy Friday. It's Friday. Hello friends. I have a really fun tutorial to share with you today. And I created it because you all asked for it. So last week on our live, we talked a little bit about colored pencils and I asked if everyone might want to see a tutorial using colored pencils, and it was kind of like a big hit. So I decided, and we also talked about doing holiday tags. So I decided that I would go ahead and create a tutorial for you. So I see people popping in. Hi Cherie, hi Connie. I'm super excited that you could join me today. I know that as we start to run up to our holiday season here, our time is pretty valuable. So I'm really grateful to all of you who are joining me today for the live and for the replay. So hi Nancy. Hi Nancy. Two Nancys. Hi Patty. Hi Wilma. So super fun. I'm so happy that you could all come in and kind of join the live today. It's just super exciting. So this live, I'm hoping to get it done in an hour, but because I'm going to focus a good bit of our tutorial time on colored pencils and just kind of do not a super in-depth, because I could go on for hours about colored pencils, but I am going to share my easygoing technique for it. And yeah, so don't forget, you can ask questions along the way. I do see them in the chat. And I'm thinking we should just get going, right? So let's go ahead and head to the down camera. Hi, Robbie. And oh, we've got Robbie's from California, Nancy's from Mexico. Everybody's kind of popping in from all over. So super excited. Okay, let's go ahead and pop in. We're going to do a quick walkthrough of the supplies. The supplies are listed below in the description, but I do have a couple things I want to share with you that I'll just kind of hold up and you can take screenshots if you want that. That seems to be something that a lot of people have been asking, enjoying me pausing to take a screenshot for some of the supplies. So, okay, let's go ahead and head to the down camera and let's go ahead. This is what we're going to make today. I'm so excited, but let's do a quick walkthrough of the supplies. I'm using 2 stamp sets today from my Gina K Designs collection. Something Wonderful. This is my newest set. You can see, holy smokes, this set is well loved, right? And I'm using my set Love at All Times. I'm using this background, this little crosshatch background from Love at All Times. It's going to be great for the card, the tag base. Okay, I'm also using the Festive sentiments that are from Gina K Designs. Love them. I'm using A Gift for You. Love these. I just love these. They're super quick. They're super easy. And you've seen me use them last week as well. Now, the paper stock that I'm using today, I'm going to talk a little bit about paper when I get into the tutorial part. But the paper stock I'm using today is Ready Cut watercolor, hot press paper. The reason why I'm using watercolor paper for colored pencils, and specifically this brand, is because because I am going to do a little bit of watercoloring with the leafery, but this particular brand is super smooth and I love the way it works with colored pencils. So I've got the tag die from Gina K Designs. That's what I use, the big honkin' tag die. I use my sentiment strips. I've got the dies from my stamp sets here. I've got in this little jar, I have Gamsol, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. That is what we're going to use to blend our colored pencils. And now let's just go ahead and dive into the colored pencils. These are blending stumps. I'm going to be using these with the color pencils. I'll talk about them a whole lot more in a moment as we dive in. I've got the Gina K Designs picker because we're going to use that for sequins and I'm obsessed with it and I love it. But here are the Prismacolor pencils that I'm using. Now, for colored pencils, there are lots of different colored pencils in the market. I have several sets of colored pencils. We're just going to dive right in to the coloring and the tutorials. The other things I forgot to share, my colors for my stamp inks. Light Carnation from Gina K Designs, Cherry Red. I'm also using Distress Ink Pine Needle and Innocent Pink, and I'll talk about that. But let's just dive in. We're 5 minutes in. I know that this this coloring tutorial is going to take a bit because I'm going to drop some knowledge, and yeah, let's get going. Okay, so different colored pencils. I'm using Prismacolor because I love them. They're super, super buttery. They're the most common ones that people are aware of and know about. I also have Derwent, the Derwent brand of colored pencils. I also have Karen Dosh's Luminance pencils, which I love, but I'm using Prismacolor today. I think they're really readily available, easy to get. They're very, very buttery. So sometimes the other color pencil is the Faber-Castell's the Faber-Castell pencils. Cherie said teach. I just love to teach, friends. I just love to teach. The Faber-Castell pencils are some of my favorites as well. And I think I'll save some of my other colored pencil brands for another lesson. But Prismacolor tends to be the brand that we all talk about as stampers and paper crafters. They're super, super buttery, where some of the differences between colored pencils are, some colored pencils are oil-based. So Faber-Castell is like an oil-based, and these are not oil-based. So, but they're super, super, super buttery, as we're going to get into it. Drop in the comments if you've used Prismacolor's pencils before. I know many of you have. And share, if you like them or some of the things you might have questions about them. One of the things about colored pencils in general, when you're working with them, is to make sure you are working with them and they're sharp. They're sharp because when they're dull, it's really, really hard to work with them. So let me move this aside. Let me just dive in a little bit and talk about the colors that we're working with. So here are the Prismacolor pencils and the inks that we're working with today. And because the technique that I'm working with is a light to dark technique, I have some variations of colors here, especially in my reds and pinks. So I'm using Prismacolor Rouge, Scarlet Lake. Scarlet Lake is like a red-orange, and the blush pink, and I'm using white. I also have Peacock Green in here. Nancy just shared that she thinks Prismas are the easiest to use. I think so too. They have the lowest learning curve. I feel like they do. Cherie says she loves Prismacolor. Gloria says, I love your charts. So yeah, here's my charts. Distress Pine Needle ink we talked about. I'm using Innocent Pink, Light Carnation, and Cherry Red. So these inks you can see are a really nice companion to these Prismacolors. The other thing I want to share about this color palette is that it's kind of got a retro Christmassy kind of look, retro holiday look. So I'm going to hold it here for a second in case you want to take a good screenshot of it. Yeah, and I'm also trying to figure out some ways to share all these little tip sheets. And I think I'm going to be offering these up in my Craft Your Joy community, which is free to anyone who wants to join. I'll talk about that a little bit later as we end. So, okay. Now, let's dive in. We are going to talk about, I have a piece of paper here. I'm going to do a demo before we actually start doing anything for the tag. So I'm going to talk a little bit about colored pencils and the different techniques you can use with them. This is not an exhaustive list. These are just some of our easygoing ones, easygoing techniques that you can use for your card projects, for your paper crafting projects. So with colored pencils, we have light layers, circular motion layering, blending with Gamsol, and that's how you can get that nice smoothie look. and then blending with white pencil. And that's another way that you can get a smooth look. These two techniques right here are called burnishing techniques, where we're actually burnishing with either a solvent Gamsol or with a white pencil. We're burnishing out the pigment that's in the colored pencil and moving it around and just kind of making it act like paint or watercolor. Okay. So the technique that we're going to do for coloring today is layering light to dark. If any of you have experience with working with alcohol markers, I know Nancy Sheeds is here and she is a Copic queen. Like, she knows Copic markers in and out and blending. It's very similar to blending with Copic markers. You're working in layers from light to dark, and you can do some really interesting blending. It's got a smoothie quality to it, but I'm going to bring it up, but you still retain some of that texture of the paper, and you get a really soft look with these techniques. Now, I'm going to pop something in the screen here. I have no colored pencil can be, when you're working with colored pencil, it can be like super tedious if you're working on a really big project. But working with our stamped images, it's really manageable. I used to create a lot of art with colored pencil, Copic markers. You all know that I'm super into watercolor, but like, here's a piece, here's a painting. I just had to pull it down. This whole painting that I did, this whole hibiscus painting is done in colored pencil and some of the burnishing techniques that we're doing today. So super fun. And actually this painting, it's probably 15 years old. So it's kind of interesting. Like, my techniques have changed and some of my strategies have changed, but you can create some really luminous work with colored pencil. I just wanted to share that real quick. Okay, let's dive in to the actual techniques. Let's dive in and talk about, I'm going to use rouge because it's a little bit darker. Wilma just said, I have the Prismacolors and I'm slowly but surely learning how to use them. Yes! Hopefully today's techniques will help you really get into them a little bit more and like give it a try. Okay, we're going to start. I'm going to talk about layering and applying color down onto your paper. Now, I'm using hot press watercolor paper today. And the reason why, you've all seen me use hot press paper. This is 100% cotton. I love it. It's pretty smooth. There's a little bit of texture in it. So my pigment in my pencil is going to get kind of picked up into that texture. But what I really love is just how smooth it is. Now, often, you could use your Gina K smooth papers. You can use your stamping papers that are smooth with your colored pencils. But more often than not, Bristol is the paper that gets used for a lot of colored pencil artists. So, and again, the Bristol, let's pop a piece out of there. The Bristol is very smooth. It doesn't have a lot of texture. It's really great to work with and layer down on. And it is a bright white. But my preference is using this hot press watercolor paper because it also gives you the opportunity to use other mediums on it. If you want to use watercolor with your colored pencils, it's a great paper for that. All right, let's dive in. Let's talk about light layers. So, and applying your color. So I'm going to start. Holding your pencil is kind of key here. I've shared before, I'm left-handed and I'm heavy-handed. And I've shared before many different reasons why I believe I'm heavy-handed, because, we were learned to kind of choke up on our pencil, and we learn to kind of just draw in a very like hard way. With colored pencils, I have found that choking up is great for details, but not so much when we're starting to do layers. So you want to pull back a little bit to get a little bit more control. Like you'll see me even kind of holding it like this, like I would a chopstick, which I'm horrible with chopsticks, by the way. Okay, so because this gives me a lot of control, but it also allows me to go in as I'm going in here and apply the color from the side of the pencil in very, very light layers. And the color that I'm applying is just sitting on top. If I'm choked up on my pencil, I would have the tendency to go in and maybe be a little bit more aggressive, and I would end up scratching into the fiber of the paper. I need to get a quick drink, excuse me. And that's going to be very, very hard to blend out. So if you're holding your pencil out here and you're kind of going over your layers in very, very light layers, and I'm going back and forth right now. Robbie just said she's a lefty too. Yes, this might help her because she's heavy-handed. If, you know, I talk to a lot of lefties and they tell me they're heavy-handed. So this definitely would help. So you can see I'm just not choked up on the pencil. I'm pulled out pretty far. I said this color was rouge. It's Tuscan red. I read that one. Sorry about that. Anyway, so I'm adding some really, really light layers. So that's really nice. That's like a light wash of color. This is a really great technique to practice applying your color to the paper. Now I'm going to pull it up. You can see that it's sitting on the surface. You can see this would be incredibly easy to blend out, and you really only need light layers when you're working with your stamped images. Incredibly easy to blend out, and it's not scratched into the fibers. Okay, that's one way. Let's just go ahead and mark that. That's our light layers. Light layers. Okay, so now I'm going to come in again and I'm going to apply another little application here of light layers, and I'm not choked up. I've got my hand kind of out here pretty far. I'm using the side of the pencil to get some of that color down. Let me go a little wider here. Excuse me, I got a little tickle in my throat today. Okay, now that's a nice little layer of color. Now I want to go in and I want to add a little more intensity to that color before I consider blending or not blending at all, right? So I'm going to go in with a circular motion. I'm still working from the side and I'm choked up about halfway. You could, if you feel more comfortable with this and you're not heavy-handed, you could choke up all the way. But I know I'm heavy-handed, so I'm going to pull back a little bit. I still have my pencil from the side because I don't want that point, remember, to go into the fiber of the paper. And now I'm just going to work in a circular motion with that similar, like light layer approach, but in a circular motion to apply more color to the top here. Now, if you want intensity of your colored pencil and you don't want to blend with Gamsol or the white pencil that we're going to talk about, this is another way to build up your layers, layer by layer, to get that intensity. So that's only, here's the one on the left with one layer. Here's the one on the right with two layers. And you can see that we're starting to build up that intensity of color. Okay, circular motion. This takes practice, friends. It takes practice not to be heavy-handed and not to be scratchy. But remember, the key thing you can take away from this is if you scratch into your paper with the tip of your pencil, and this goes for watercolor pencils too, you're going to scratch into the fiber of your paper and it'll be incredibly difficult to blend it out. And then that's usually what happens. People will get frustrated and they'll stop. So keep that in mind. You won't get frustrated if you just take your time and just go from the side. Okay, So now I'm going to go in again with another layer with a circular motion, and I'm going to do it just right here so we can see how I'm building up that color intensity. I'm going to turn this way. Good old lefty. Building up that color intensity. My pressure, I would say, is a little, not as light as it was here. It's a little bit more on the medium side as I'm building up that color. So let's bring that up. So you can see the more layers that I build up, the more pigment sits on top of the paper, and the more I can get that blendy, smoothie look just by adding layers of color. Okay, so let's call this, let's put this down here, circular motion. Circular motion, layering. And this is to build your color, to build up your color. Okay. Now, the next technique I'm going to share is by far the most popular. You know why? Because it's super quick and easy, and that's blending with Gamsol. Now, Gamsol comes in a big, big bottle. I just have it in this little glass jar. I think this was like my face cream, and when I was done with my face cream, I kept it, cleaned it out, and just used this jar because it was pretty airtight. So it is a liquid. It's also called odorless mineral spirits. Now, even though it's odorless, I still have a window kind of open, or you want to work with it in an open area. You can also, for blending, if you have a Copic marker blender or like an alcohol marker blender, you could use that too. It does the same kind of effect. So I'm going to go ahead and add, I'm going to do a little bit of a light layer. I've got some medium pressure. You can see I'm not choked up. I've got my hand out to the edge here. And I'm going to go across my page here and just kind of add a layer of color. And then we're going to blend half of it out with Gamsol. Now, let's go ahead and bring my Gamsol over. I've got a little paper towel because I tend to be a little messy, friends. If you get a bottle of Gamsol, or if you own a bottle of Gamsol, that bottle will last you forever and a day, friends. It'll just last forever because you need very, very little Gamsol to get your blend. So here is a blending stump. Here's a couple blending stumps that I've been using. I've got all different kinds of sizes. They get color on them. You can see where I've got color on them. To sharpen them, I literally just pop them in my pencil sharpener to kind of sharpen them out. So I'm going to go ahead and let's go ahead and use this one. You could also use a paintbrush to do this. Often I'll use this filbert because it has like this crescent moon shape and it's kind of big and I can use it. So you could use a paintbrush to do this as well. So I'm dipping into the Gamsol. I need very, very little. And then I can just go ahead and start working. I like to work in a circular motion. I need a little more Gamsol. I like to work in a circular motion versus a back and forth painting motion. Because you're breaking down the fiber, no, not the fiber, you're breaking down the pigment of the colored pencil one little bit at a time and just kind of blending it out. I've got about a medium pressure. I'm holding back about halfway here. And I keep dipping back into my Gamsol versus going into my Gamsol with a ton and getting a ton on there. This is paper. These little blending stumps are paper, so it just kind of sucks up the the liquid, the Gamsol. So here we go, we're blending. And we get that nice little blend where between the layer and this. And there's still a little bit, you can see a little bit more pigment that I could blend out, but I'm not going to blend it out because I like the texture. Now I want to show you the blending stump is paper, so it literally sucks up that Gamsol. If you use a paintbrush, keep in mind you need very, very little. So I'm dipping it in just very gently because the paintbrush sucks it right up to the edge, right there. So you need very, very little. Otherwise, what's going to happen is you're going to put a stain of the Gamsol onto your paper. So you can see that the Gamsol didn't go through because I used very, very little. But if I use a paintbrush, I can cover a bigger area pretty fast, but I can already tell that I've got too much Gamsol on my brush, because look at that, it bleeds right through. So you need very, very, very little. The only time I really, really bring out a paintbrush is if I've got a large surface. So we're going to be coloring up the large pomegranate, so I might be bringing that back out. Okay. If you have any questions about these 3 techniques so far, let me know. The next one I'm going to share is blending with a white pencil. So the Prismacolor white pencil is gorgeous, great for highlights, great for using when you want to create something white, but it's also pretty fantastic for blending out colors. So what I'm going to do, let me think about this. Yeah, I'm going to use crimson red. So I'm going to take my crimson red. I'm holding it out here. I'm going to come in and I've got my pencil. I've got a medium pressure. So you can see I'm kind of getting some really nice color there. A really nice good first layer. It's not super light. I'm going to go in and just do some circular motion here. Just a little bit. I'm still pretty lightweight here. I just want to get some color down here that's a little bit darker than a light layer. A little bit darker there. Now I'm going to go in with my white pencil and use my white pencil to blend out this color. And how I do that is I just take my white pencil and I start going in with a circular motion. And I'm going to only blend half of this so you can see the half and half. Now it changes the original red quite a bit. And it's also, I've got a pretty heavy pressure with my hand in this circular motion. I'm using the white pencil to burnish in the color and blendy smoothie it out. And once I do this with the white pencil, I'm not really able to go back and go over it because it gets super smooth and super shiny. It also changes the nature of the original red. So sometimes, so watch, I'm going to try to go over it, and as I'm going over it, it gets really kind of scratchy. So I'm going to go ahead and blend that out. If I put a little bit more pressure on my circular motion, I can really, really blend that original red color into a super smooth kind of look. So if you are, or have an aversion to using like the solvents, the mineral spirits, some people have also used baby oil for their blending. I'm not so sure about that. I've never done it, but I know people have. And there's also something called Zest, which is like a non-toxic orange smell based kind of piece that's used, liquid that's used as a blender. So okay, so using the white pencil, you can do the blending. You can also do blending like from shade to shade. So like if this is crimson red and that's blush pink, you can blend these 2 colors together and have them go over top of each other and create some smoothie blends. And we're going to do that with the pomegranate, working light to dark, and just kind of show you that technique. Oh, I love it. Yeah, Cherie said no baby oil for me. Yeah, the baby oil is something that I know I probably have tried it. I just can't recollect it. But it's something that's definitely, you saw how I went through my paper with the brush. It's something that's definitely going to go through your paper. Maybe somebody else could pop in the chat if they've had any experience with using hand sanitizers. I understand that sometimes people have used hand sanitizers and just kind of put it down and use that to blend. I haven't tried that either as well. The Gamsol works. I use it in a well ventilated place. I feel very safe using it. So I use it. All right, let's get going. If you have any questions about the techniques, we're going to walk through. We're going to use the techniques that I shared. We're going to walk through and we're going to color up the large pomegranate. Now, I've already done the techniques that I shared. I've already done the small pomegranate because I wanted to make sure that we had enough time. Now we're going to walk through the large pomegranate. We're going to work light to dark. We're going to build up our layers light to dark with watercolor pencil, and we're going to do some blending with the Gamsol. So let me pull all my pencils here that I'm going to be using from my light to dark. I'm not going to be using the white until the end. So let's go ahead and get in here so that you can see how I'm going to build up my layers. I'm going to start with a blush pink. Okay. Robbie says, I've not used hand sanitizer because it takes, yeah, I've used it to take the inks off your fingers. That's definitely works. Okay, I'm going to use blush pink, then Scarlet Lake, then Crimson Red, and then Tuscan Red. And I'm going to gradually build up my layers from light pink to a dark red. And then I'm going to use white to kind of bring it all together in the end. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to work from this side to this side. So I'm going to turn this over. I stamped my Pommy down in Innocent Pink. Okay. I stamped my pomegranate down in Innocent Pink because over time, with us coloring this in, it's going to render that Innocent Pink. We're not going to be able to see it. It's going to be like no line watercoloring, but with colored pencil. So Wilma said, I like using the Gamsol best far in my learning experience. Yes, because the barrier to entry to using it is super simple, and you get that blending and you get that effect kind of right away. So it creates that muscle memory for us that says, oh, this technique works. I can practice this and I can replicate this over time and I can feel good about what I'm creating. So it does something to our brains, right? When we succeed in creating what we initially thought we were going to create. Okay, I'm going in with my blush pink and I'm going in, just checking here. I'm going in with some really, really light layers. And I'm going out to my edge here. I feel like, okay, there we go. I'm going out to my edge here and I'm going in with some light layers. I'm going to come about halfway over. I probably should have did the small one. We're probably going to run over an hour. But you know what, friends? This color pencil technique is super juicy. And I want you to get a lot out of it. So I don't want to skip out on anything. I'm coming around here a little bit because I want to extend this out. And then I'm just going to go ahead in here and get my light layers going. Got my light layers. Come about halfway across with that first layer. I'm digging it. I'm holding my pencil out pretty far. I'm trying really hard. You can see where I started to get a little heavy there. Trying really hard to be light-handed. For me, that's a practice. I literally have to back off and watch what I'm doing. I'm also shaking the table quite a bit, but you know what? It's live. We're good. Okay, so I've come across there. Now I'm going to come back this way from right to left with the Scarlet Lake. I'm going to turn my paper this way, and I'm doing the same technique. I'm coming in very, very, very light layers. and I'm going to have these two meet. You can see I'm turning the pencil around, turning the paper around. That works best for me. If you feel, especially when I'm working in a circular motion, it works best for me to turn my paper. Makes it pretty super easy to kind of just get that application of color right where I want it to be. So I've got two light layers here, and I've kind of intersected them a little bit right here. I'm going to come over here and add some intensity, but again, light layer. I'm going to come in from the tip down and do a little bit of light layering, just very, very light with the Scarlet Lake. And I've got halfway. I'm not choked up. You'll very rarely see me get choked all the way up unless I'm going in as a finishing technique and adding detail, which, I might do that a little bit in the end. You see me moving the paper, and I hope that's helpful. It also helps for you to be able to see what I'm doing. Okay. I went outside the lines a little bit, but I'm not concerned because we're going to be die cutting these little pommies. Okay, I've got my two colors here, and I'm looking at them. And right now, it could feel to you like, holy smokes, this is kind of a hot mess, right? What do I do? I'm not loving this. But now, resist the urge to have that feeling. We're going in. We're going to add another layer. And this time, we're going to focus our adding our layers over top this Scarlet Lake. So I'm not blending in between yet. I am getting all of my layers down. Then we're going to blend, and then I'm going to add some more layers. So let's go in with I almost said Christmas red. It's crimson red, which is sort of like a Christmas red, right? And I'm going to hug the outer edge here of my pommy. I'm going to go in with my circular motion and just kind of add some color, and I'm building up my layers. Now, colored pencil artists, here's some fun facts. I've done many colored pencil pieces. Like I said, when you're doing colored pencil pieces that aren't stamped related images, they're very, very time consuming, very labor intensive. There are quite a few botanical artists that use just colored pencil, and they build up layer upon layer upon layer to get these burnished looks and these colors. It is labor intensive. But for our stamped images, because our stamped images are smaller, they tend to be, about 2 inches wide. It depends on what you're coloring. This is a really great technique to practice because I could keep building up these layers without using the Gamsol and still get that vibrant, luminous look. Okay, so you're starting to see I've got a dark layer, a little bit, that's the Scarlet Lake, and then we've got all of that pink going on there. Now, something in me wants to add a little bit more Scarlet Lake to the middle here because I feel like I've got a lot of my blush pink. So I'm going to go in again with some really, really light layers. I'm holding this out pretty far, and I'm just going to add another layer of Scarlet Lake. Scarlet Lake's a really pretty color. I'm just going to show it to you. It's like a red-orange. It's just really, really pretty. And pomegranates have this beautiful coloring in them that's just absolutely stunning. Okay, we're going in, friends. We're going in, we're going in, we're going in. We're going to blend with some Gamsol. Let's do it. Okay, I'm going to bring the Gamsol into the frame here. I'm going to turn this around. Wendy says it's very relaxing and the finished product is so beautiful. I would agree. Coloring with colored pencils in this small format works for me. It's very, very relaxing. If you want to practice these layers going light to dark, I highly encourage you to just draw a circle and practice. And you'll really, really get into that groove, and you'll hit that bliss zone where you're feeling very relaxed, but you're also getting that muscle memory in your brain and in your hand on how to do this technique. Okay, can you tell I just do a lot of those kind of things? Now I'm going to start from my pommy here. I'm going to start from this little edge, and I'm just working in my circular motion here, and I'm starting to blend everything out with the Gamsol. And you can see how quickly the Gamsol helps that pigment break up and release. And I need very, very little to make that happen. You can see where, I'm just kind of going around the edge here. You can see where I'm coming across, and where the red and the Scarlet Lake starts to meet. I love when Scarlet Lake starts to blend. Look at it. It's got a very peachy kind of feel to it. The orange undertones in Scarlet Lake starts to come out. Scarlet Lake as a color is very, very common. You'll hear that name often in watercolor pencils. I'm coming across here into the blush pink area, and you can see that it's blending out. It's very, very light. Digging it, digging it. All right, I'm coming across, and I'm just working in this little blending motion and just kind of working in that circular motion. I prefer the circular motion over the back and forth paint style motion because I'm able to work that pigment into the fiber of the paper and really just kind of embed that pigment into the fibers a little bit. I'm choked up a little bit here. I've got about a medium pressure with my hands. Not super heavy, but a nice little medium pressure. I'm going to keep turning this around and working in the circular motion here. You can start to see our blending come together here. Now I've got a little bit of all the colors kind of on my tip of my blending stump here, and I'm not sorry. I kind of like it. It's allowing me to get a little bit of some of the other color over here. Digging it. All right, I'm going to go into that edge a little bit. I really do want that line to disappear, so we're going to end up coming back over it. You can see that the line from the Innocent Pink is starting to disappear over here on this side. Okay, I'm liking it. A little scratchy motion I got right there, but I'm cool with it because it's giving me some really nice texture in the pomegranate. Now, I'm going to come up to the tips here. Let's turn that around so you can see that really well. And I'm just going to do some flicking. Just kind of flick that in and sort of paintbrush it a little bit down. And just kind of blend that out because we're going to add another layer of color just to intensify this even more. Really jack up the luminosity of, let's see if I can blend this a little bit more. There we go. There we go. So I'm just drawing that color down. I will make these two areas meet a little bit more instead of seeing kind of a definitive color between this and that. Now I'm going to come back in with a little bit of crimson red on this side. I'm going to do another layer. Now this is dry and it's been a joy to work on this paper. Look at the texture of the paper. You can see the pigment, like the granulating pigments. It's got a smoothie look, but it's still got some texture going, which makes it really nice. I'm going to come around the edge here. I'm using crimson red. I'm going to add another layer over top. I'm working in a circular motion here, and I'm going in. You can see, and this is where I'm going to connect these two. I'm adding a little bit of that crimson red up here, and I'm going to add a little more crimson red around my edges here. I'm just going around the edge in a circular motion, and I'm going to come up around this edge a little bit more. I'm just drawing that color some of that darker color up into my lighter areas. So the Gamsol dries, and it also is very different than when I used the white pencil. Once I use the white pencil, it's really hard to go over it and do any more applying color. But you can see I'm applying color right over top this. And now I'm going to add just a little smidge of the Scarlet Lake in here. I want to come over just a smidge more. So I'm going to just go in. I'm holding out very, very far. A very light layer of color. Oh, so I've added my texture back in here. That's okay. That's okay. Because we're going to blend it out. Now I'm going to come in with that Tuscan red, and I'm going to hug that edge a little bit. And then we're going to blend all of this together, and it's going to be done. So 2 layers of applying color and adding Gamsol to blend. I could even take it another step further and go a 3rd layer. But my 2nd layer that I did was a little bit more heavy-handed, so I was able to apply more color. I'm going to come around about halfway here. I'm getting into the zone. This is very relaxing, very relaxing. I'm going to come up to the tips here and just add a little bit of that rouge, Tuscan red, to the tips. Colored pencils are, we're using colored pencils today and kind of giving them a watercolor effect, which I think is nice. Now, you could just stop right here. If you wanted your image to have more texture, you could just stop right here because you've got a mix of texture and blending. But we're going to blend it out because I want you to see what that looks like. We're going to blendy it out. So again, I'm going to go in with my circular motion, and I've got a very light hand, and I'm just using dipping my Gamsol in, dipping my blending stump into the Gamsol, being very, not like saturating my blending stump, but just going in with a little bit, going around, little tiny bit here, just kind of blending that color out, and then bringing it around the edge here. Cheryl said thank you. I'm glad this is super helpful. It's also, this technique is a little more intense than washy watercolor, but because you've got a couple layers going here, and it takes a little bit longer than one of our normal live tutorials, but I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it, friends. And I know that the live will be on, forever on YouTube, but I'm probably going to take this live and edit and just focus on the colored pencil technique tutorial, and I'm going to post that in my classroom. So if you already take classes with me in the Craft Your Joy classroom, you'll see it there. It'll be a free. If not, you can always join my community, my Craft Your Joy community, for free. I also have a free course on my online classroom. Robbie said totally worth it. Yeah, I have a free course called Art Exploration in the Craft Your Joy classroom at craftyourjoy.com. And there's 12 lessons in that free class, and it's juicy, friends. So if you're interested in more from me and you want to take a free class, just sign up for free at craftyourjoy.com. And then once you do, the community gets automatically added to your student dashboard. And that's, friends, is where I'm going to be sharing a lot of more content, especially in the new year. And the reason is, I don't feel like Facebook, if you're on my email list, you get this information because I send an email once a week. But Facebook does not show my posts to all the people who follow me. Neither does Instagram. And it can be frustrating because I'm trying to share and teach. So I've decided to move a lot of my content into my own platform. And here on YouTube, I'm still going to be doing YouTube lives where I know you're going to see it and get more value out of it. I hope that makes good sense. Okay. Holy smokes, I'm loving this. So look at the color. So you can see we've got that intensity of dark to light. I could even go in a little bit more. So we've done 2, not 3, 2. We've done 2 layers. I could even go in right here, right now, and just add the tiniest bit of red to just this outer edge, just to intensify it even more. Okay. And then just blend that out. So the beautiful thing about colored pencils is that you have a lot of options. If you don't have colored pencils and you have watercolor pencils, you could do the same technique. When I've taught watercolor pencils here on the lives, you'll see that a lot of the techniques are very similar, except we're using water to blend, not Gamsol. All right, I'm digging this. I'm going to leave it. Now I want to, you see this area right here? I want to create a little bit of white highlight. So I'm going to go in with my white pencil and I'm just going to go in. I'm holding my pencil out pretty far and I'm just going to go in with a circular motion here and just add a little bit of white over top and kind of come over a little bit into my Scarlet Lake layer. Now, I could leave it this way. I think I'm going to leave it this way. I could leave it this way because we've got that texture. We still have a blendy look and we still have the texture. What I'm not digging is that line right there because I didn't make that line go away like I wanted to. So let's go in a little bit with the blush pink. I tell you, working with the colored pencils over the last couple weeks, I've kind of had a little bit of a renewed joy for them, like a renewed sense of joy using them. I have tended to shy away from using them a lot because they are, you know, they can be labor intensive. So Cheryl just asked, the Gamsol dries on the paper pretty quickly. Yes, it does. It dries on the paper pretty quickly. The key, Cheryl, is to make sure you're using it very like judiciously. If you're using a stump, a blending stump, you're just dipping it in and using it. If you're using a paintbrush, be very, very careful because the paintbrush, the object of the paintbrush is to suck up whatever you got and hold that Gamsol, and you could just end up having too much. Okay. Now here's my finishing technique before we build our tag, which we're doing pretty good on time. Okay, I'm going to go in with my white pencil and I'm going to go in, I'm going to make that line disappear. I'm just going to go in very close to that outer edge and just kind of apply a little bit of white pencil to the outer edge and just kind of blend. So where the white pencil meets the paper, I'm softening the edge, that harsh edge that I have. Even though we're going to die cut this, I'm softening it with the white pencil. I'm not choked up, I'm pulled out. And I would say my pressure here is about a medium pressure. And I'm just kind of going back and forth and softening the edge so it kind of whoosh, kind of bleeds off the paper a little bit. This becomes really, really soft. And this is a great way to soften and also blend out your edges a little bit. Ah, I'm loving it. Look at that. Okay. Wowza. I'm going to close up my Gamsol because we're going to put, oh, no, we're not ready. I was going to say, we're going to cut this stuff. We're going to put that tag together. But guess what? I haven't done the leafery. So I'm going to do a mix of watercolor and colored pencil. I want to show you what's a mixed media technique. Now, often when you hear the word mixed media, you're thinking, oh my goodness, we're getting out the glues, we're getting out the gesso, we're getting out all the things. And we're going to like make a layered page. But really, what mixed media is, I use pine needle. What mixed media is just that. You're mixing mediums. So I went ahead, I need to grab a brush here. I went ahead and painted, stamped that down in the pine needle. And the reason why I'm using pine needle is because it's, the Distress ink is water-based. I've just got a cheap brush here. And I'm going to go in and just soften those edges and use that Distress color to blend out just as a watercolor medium. So I'm going to show you, then we're going to go over top of it with a little bit of that peacock green colored pencil. And that, my friends, is mixed media. We're mixing our medias. We're using Distress ink and we're using colored pencil. And again, this is another way to build up layers. So your first layer, our first layer right here, if we wanted to, could have been watercolor. Could have been a nice little wash of watercolor, and then I could have gone over it with my colored pencil. So that's what I'm showing you here. We've got a little wash of watercolor, and now I'm going to go over it with my colored pencil. All right. Now let's go to the peacock. So I've got peacock here. I need to double check what's dry, what's not dry. I'll tell you what. Okay, looking good. Let's see. I'm holding it to the light so I can see what's dry without really touching it. Okay, that's still a little bit wet. But let's go ahead and just take off any extra wetness that we got going here. Normally I would just heat set it real quick, but that's okay. We still have our color. Now you could let it just be this way if you really just wanted that wash of watercolor with those hard lines. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to add a little bit of this peacock green. Now this color, peacock green, super cute. Let's bring that in. It's like a blue green. Love it. I'm going to come in with a really light layer. I'm not choked up on the pencil. I'm out here pretty far. I'm going to come in and just add a little layer of color on this outer edge. Light layer, just kind of going back and forth here and adding my light layer of color. I am going to blend this out with Gamsol, so I'm not super worried about it, but I do just want to get a nice little light wash of color in here. And then I'm going to come in with this. Last week I used Inktense pencils. And I used Ionian green, which was really a great color. Very much like this peacock color. You can see I'm adding a nice little layer of color here. Oh, I just love this color. It's so nice. And I'm really focusing, again, lights to dark. So this is the light side. This is the darker side. Okay. Let's go in here. Let's move that. This little thing is creeping out on me. Let's move this. Bring this in here. And just kind of adding this light layer. Medium pressure. Not super intense. Come around the edge here a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit more right there. Now I'm just kind of going back and looking at my leafery here and seeing where I want a little bit more intensity of color. Oh, thank you, Gloria. That's very sweet of you. Okay, I'm going to come in and now I'm going to blend out this green. I'm going to use a different blending stump because my other ones have so much red in it, and I'm just going to go in and just kind of lightly wash this with the Gamsol and blend it out. Just kind of come down. So what I'm doing is blending the colored pencil into the watercolor area and just smoothing it out. This blending stump is not behaving the way I'd like it to, so let's grab a different blending stump here. Yeah, that blending stump was a little scratchy. Let's try this one. Okay, so blending that out a little bit. Coming in here, blending out that green. There we go. I might go in and add another layer. I'm feeling like we need another layer here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm coming back. So I could have done 2 layers and then blended them all together. But instead I did a layer and blended. And then I'm adding another layer. I'm getting a little bit of scratchiness on my paper here, but that's okay. I'm going to leave that. That's adding a lot of little extra texture. Just kind of digging it. Going a little wild, a little wonky. All right, blending stuff. Let's see, this little baby. We'll try the little baby the other side. See if I can get this to blend out really nicely. And if you can see that I've got a little bit too much water in that one spot and the paper's starting to pill. So if I can't get it to the way I want, I'm going to come in with this white pencil, which is happening here because I kind of messed up a little bit. So I'm coming in with my white pencil and I'm just going over this in a circular motion to just kind of pull those colors together. What does Gina always say? Better than horrible? This isn't as ideal. Like I would want a little more intensity, but I put a little bit too much water there. You really do need to make sure your paper is dry in between. That's okay. I'm kind of liking the texture now that I've blended it out a little bit with the white pencil. Okay, now it's time to kind of assemble our tag. So we've got all these really fun, let's get our pencils out of the way before I end up getting, you know, everything all jimmy jammed in here. Let's get our glue in here. We've got our die cuts. I'm going to have to cut them up and we're going to get going. So I'm going to go ahead and run the 2 Pommies and the leafery through the die cutter. I do have the die cutter right here. You can hear my chair do a little squeak. So I'm going to go ahead and run these through the die cutter. I grabbed the wrong die. I grabbed the little tiny pomegranate. I need the bigger pomegranate. There we go. Alrighty. So there we go. We're going to run that through. Oh, this is gorgeous. Gorgeous. The little pommy moved a little bit. Alright, there we go. I'm using my Spellbinders Platinum 6. I didn't bring it into the shot because, you know, it shakes the table a little bit. So I have it next to me. I'll bring it in here so everybody can see. So we've got our little die cuts. Oh, they're so cool. It's like when you get to this spot in your project, you're like, holy smokes, I'm making it. I'm getting there, right? You're like, I'm kind of digging it. I'm loving the way these Pommies look in that colored pencil. It's just amazing. Okay, now I want to add a background to this because, you know, stamps for me are always the star of the show. So in this case, I'm using this crosshatch background from the Loves It All Time stamp set because it's got kind of a little bit of a retro look, and I'm going to use light carnation with this because the light carnation is going to pick up that blush pink in the colored pencil. Digging it. Let's stamp this out. And the cool thing about the backgrounds that I usually share in my stamp sets are that you can build with them. So I'm going to start from the center here and just kind of stamp that down, and we've got that going. Now I'm going to go ahead and come off to the edge here a little bit and then kind of create that pattern. And this time I'm going to flip it. Always talking about doing these things in threes. I'm going to flip it and add a little bit something to that corner. That's where a gift for you is going to be, but I really want it to have like a pattern underneath it to just kind of ground the sentiment. All right, now we're into assembly, and this is our tag. Okay, so here's our tag inspiration. I love these big honkin' tags. They're just so fun. It's a 3-piece die set from Gina K. They're just great. You can even pop this whole thing onto a card, and that could be like your card base. That would be super fun. All right, you got my Connect glue here, and I've got my my leafery. I'm just going to add a little bit of glue. Let's get that glue going. There we go. I'm going to add a little bit of glue to my leafery. I love this little bottle because it just really gives you a nice little fine line of glue. Now, from a design perspective on here, our leafery is going to come off the edge a little bit. I'm using that little corner right there to kind of give me my anchor point. And I'm just going to hold that down just for a second to kind of give me my little anchor point. I just kind of want to shift it just a smidge. You know, just whoosh, it's kind of going down this way. All right, then I'm going to add in my little Pommy, and she's going to go right there because in the leafery, I've got that little open spot, and she's going to nest right up underneath there and go underneath that leafery piece, and then we're going to put the big mama, so the baby and the mama, like under the leafery right there. So we've got this kind of movement going. So let's go ahead and glue some stuff down. And I'll glue that back down, but that's okay. Don't need a lot of glue because a lot of this is just gonna stick. You could use foam tape and pop this stuff up. But because it was a gift tag, I was trying to keep it a little low key, low profile. I'm just gonna add that there. And then I'm gonna pop my little Pommy right up here. And I'm kind of using that little edge right there, just kind of popped right there. Just let's get that little Pommy right underneath there. So she's covered up a little bit. Let's add a little drop of glue right here. She's covered up a little bit, but she's kind of moved. We got a lot of movement going on here. Movement here, movement here. Now, one other thing I wanted to stamp before we start to add the gift tag piece. Totally blanked, but we need a little flower. So here is the little bloom from the Something Wonderful set. And here is the 2-step stamp part of the bloom. I'm going to put a little flower eventually over here. So I'm going to use a light carnation for my silhouette. I'm just stamping on my watercolor paper where I stamped everything else. And then I'm going to go over it with the cherry red. And you can do a complete like 2-step stamping, like go right over it, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be a little wonky. So I've got a little bit of that color underneath, and then I've got that line art at the top with the bloom. So you end up getting a lot more texture with just your stamped color. All right, let's run this through the die cutter real quick. Do 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 do. Do do. Do 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 do. All right, through the die cutter really quickly. She's cranking, she's cranking. Maybe someday I should get that Gemini die cutter. I don't know. I love this platinum. I love the Platinum 6. So there's my little bloom. She's so pretty. Okay. Now I've got my sentiment. Oh, thank you, Diane. She said, Lisa, you're a really good teacher. Oh, I'm glad. Thank you. That's very, very sweet of you. Okay. In my original design, I kind of nested the gift for you underneath there, but I also did this pattern here. So I'm using this pattern to kind of give me my anchor point for putting my sentiment, and I'm going to let that sentiment kind of run off the edge a little bit. Doing something different here. Something a little different. Let's see how far I want to come over. Do I want to come over to there? And maybe put my little bloom there. Ooh. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. I think I like it. Okay. Wilma just said, I think a lot of the times when I'm working on a project and I finish my coloring, I think I'm not sure if I like how it looks. I totally can feel that, Wilma. I found once you cut it out and the dies, it looks even better. Here's another little tip or trick. And when we go to the front camera, I'm going to show you that tip or trick because you kind of need to see my face to do that trick. If you're not sure if your project's coming out the way you like it, see how I use that line right there in that pattern just to kind of anchor my sentiment. And now I'm going to take my bloom and I'm going to pop my bloom over here. So it makes this little connection between my sentiment and these pommies, and it kind of just goes up in this little Z pattern. Love it. And then we're going to put our embellishments on, and we're going to be good to go. All right, let's go here, and let's just pop that on there. Just popping my finger and just kind of holding that on. Now I'm going to go in. We're almost there. I'm going to finish this up. Oh, I'm digging this. I'm digging the way this looks. Fun. Now, I have a theory about, like, so this is a tag. And I'm going to give this away for the holidays, right? So you're going to put it on a Prezi or something. I'm going to do 5 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But here's my theory. Same thing with card making. You're not going to give this to that friend that you're not so sure he or she's going to toss it in the trash or the recycling, right? You're going to give it to that friend who instantly wants to put it in a frame or wants to put it in their book or wants to keep it as a nice memory of you. Ah, I am digging this. All right, we've got one more finishing thing that we need to do. One more. I don't love the way this leafery came out compared to the way my leafery came out over here, but that's okay. I'm cool with it. We had fun together. We're going to go in. Got a little bit of that pine needle. I'm going to take my brush, get that nice wet and juicy. And this is a really small brush. I'm going to concentrate some really small splatters around some of these edges. And I'm going to concentrate some of those splatters right on the leafery that I'm not loving because it just adds a little extra texture and dimension. Robbie just said, those are so pretty. Your tags and cards look so complicated, but when I watch you, it's not as complicated. I know! That's the key. The stamps are the star of the show. And really, you can just build all of these things with the stamps and a little bit of coloring. I'm loving the way this came out. The splatter really, really helped with the leafery. I'm digging it. I'm digging it. Okay, I want to go up to the front camera and give you that tip that I was talking about. So the tip is, if you are unsure about the way something looks, get some distance from it. You can wait a day. That's one way to get some distance. Also, hold it out at arm's length, especially with coloring. Any kind of Copic coloring, any kind of coloring with colored pencil or watercolor. When we're holding it really close, we tend to see the flaws or some of the things that make us feel a little uncomfortable about what we've created. When you hold it out at arm's length and you kind of stare at it, you kind of take your eyes and go like this, you can start to see the whole composition and how the whole piece comes together. And then you really see it in a different light. Another way is to take your cell phone and take a picture of it. And then you're able to like kind of look at it. Now your cell phone, and depending upon your light, is going to change sometimes the coloring of things. So that's why I'm like, you don't always need technology to kind of get a good feel for something. hold it at arm's length, squint your eyes a little bit, and you can kind of look at it. And as a whole, when you're looking at the whole project, you'll see that cohesion that you're looking for. Okay. Wow. Okay, so we did go a little bit over today, but I told you this lesson, this colored pencil lesson was going to be juicy. I hope you got a lot of value out of it. I hope you learned a lot. And again, I'm going to be editing this video down and maybe putting it back on YouTube, but definitely putting it in my Craft Your Joy community and classroom as a free lesson. And that's something I'm going to be doing into the 2023, offering a lot more content over there to where you can go in and watch it at any time. Okay, so Cheryl just said, yes, I remember my 8th grade teacher telling us to distance yourself. Yes, distance yourself from the project. Okay, friends, I hope you really enjoyed today's tutorial. I had a ton of fun preparing and practicing watercolor techniques and really, not watercolor, colored pencil, and really getting into colored pencils again. I'm not going to lie, in the Prismacolor palette, I have them all and I absolutely love them. They're a really, really great colored pencil. So I'm sending you into the weekend to craft your joy. If you're watching this on the replay, I hope you're enjoying it. If you have any questions along the way, please feel free to reach out to me. If you're interested at all in the world of Lisa Hetrick, you can always join my email list. The list the link is in the description. I send an email 3 to 4 times a week. No, a month, not a week. 3 to 4 times a month. And that is where I know you're getting the information. I share the lives, I share releases, I share discounts to my classroom and to my store. So yeah, it's the place where everything, you know, you're going to get all the information. So if you're interested, the link is down below in the description. I'm not going to be back next week, friends, because it's in the US, it's Thanksgiving on Thursday, and we host here in our home. So I won't be back on Friday, but I will be sending out an email with an additional discount code that's coming out for the classroom. So yeah, that'll be fun. So if you're on that email list, you're going to see it. But I will be sharing more inspiration through my social platforms over the week and also in my email list. So thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so grateful to all of you. I'm so grateful to everyone for your support and hanging in with me for this tutorial. And I hope you got a lot of value out of it. So I'm seeing everyone say thank you and goodbye. Have a really great weekend. And I hope you get some time to craft your joy. I'll see you next time.